Well, it's holiday season, which means temptations are literally everywhere we turn, from Christmas cookies to cocktails to holiday treats. And these foods can spark joy, certainly, but they can also cause some anxiety if you're worried about overindulging. And boy, do I ever hear that. So we have registered dietitian Andrea Holwegner joining us this morning to give us some tips on how to navigate these holiday temptations. Good morning, Andrea. You look beautiful. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. This is probably one of the one times that I'm coming in and I'm not got a food display totally full of nerdy, nutritious vegetables. I'm excited to show you what I have here because it might be a little unexpected for viewers.
Yeah, you've got some holiday treats yourself, and it's tough this time of year to say no to everything. I cannot say no to treats. You put in front of me, I'm gonna eat it. But it can be hard to find a balance between enjoying yourself but not going overboard. So you have some tips for us so we can have a guilt-free holiday season. Let's dive right in.
Okay, so our first tip is that you can eat anything, just not everything. And so I want to show you what I got here because these are foods that spark joy for me. Every year, my mom and my son and I, we make very delicious, yummy homemade treats. We've been doing this for years. Like my grandma used to do this stuff with us. And what I want you to think about, there are no food rules. There are only food love. And so if you can eat anything, just not everything, I'm going to ask you to be very intentional about your choices. So of course, as the chocoholic dietitian, chocolate is always in my top running. And number two is always going to be whatever homemade treats are really unique to us as a family over the holidays. And so have a little bit of fun. In fact, I'm going to give you a little fun prank that you can do. The Ferrero Rochers here, every year my son and I unwrap the little Ferreros. And then we put some little Brussels sprouts inside them and we give these as gifts. So I want you to have some fun over the holidays. Don't take yourself too seriously. It's not about food perfection. It's always going to be about having a bit of fun at the holiday period here.
I love that. That's so fantastic. And I mean, you eat those Ferrero Rochers, right? And then put the Brussels sprouts in it? Oh, yeah.
Of course, that's the entire purpose of this activity.
And that's what I would consider balance for sure. All right, so that's tip number one. You can eat anything, but not everything. What's tip number two?
Tip number two is anticipate that there's going to be more cravings and there's probably going to be a bit more stress eating, particularly around the holidays. And so again, cut yourself a little bit of slack. Everybody eats emotionally sometimes. It's a normal thing. Even dietitians do. Of course, chocolate would be number one for me. And what we want to think about is when we're stuffing down uncomfortable emotions at the holiday, if you find yourself in that, really what you want to start percolating and asking yourself is, how could I comfort myself without food? And that's a really tough thing to sort of percolate, but that's where we want to start exploring and not in the middle of ice cream sundaes and potato chips or whatever the stress eating is, at a time you can be confident with. And the other thing is we've got a lot of cravings that can happen when we're stressed and sleep deprived and exhausted, all of those things. And what we want to think about is being really intentional about what it is we're craving before we do what I call chewing around the craving. So people will just start sampling a bunch of things, trying to hit what it is they're craving. And I want you to be very intentional again. That's the big word here, intentional. Slow yourself down. Is it sweet? Is it savory? Is it chocolatey? Is it whatever? And then that way you can have a bit of whatever you're craving and knock that craving out of the park, crush the craving instead of sort of chewing around it.
So it's almost like getting yourself in the right mindset and trying to hold yourself throughout whatever holiday parties or events that you're happening. Okay, tip number three, last one.
Tip number three is use what I call the if-then planning to get back on track right away. And so for 30 years, psychologists, behavior change experts have been using this to help people when they get derailed, because we know you can set a healthy eating goal or a walking goal, and inevitably you're going to get off track. That's just human nature. So what you want to do is never miss twice. So for example, if your goal was to go for a walk every morning before work, but it was like you were too tired and you slept in, then have an if-then type of goal. And so if I didn't do my walk this morning, then I'm going to use the shoes that are in my car and I'm going to put them on before I drive home from work and get a walk in around my office. And so you've always got a backup plan. So another one, for example, is if I forgot to pack my lunch or I didn't want to today, then immediately when I get home from work today, I'm going to pack the lunch for tomorrow because I don't want to miss twice. Otherwise, what happens is we get off track for, sometimes a couple of weeks and we lose motivation. So the sooner you can regroup and have an if-then plan, the better we're going to do over the holidays.
Those are such great tips, and I could sit here and hear all of your tips all day long. Thank you so much, Andrea, for joining us this morning. You can visit Andrea's website, and I highly recommend following her on Instagram for more healthy habits. Have a wonderful weekend, Andrea.
Thanks so much for having me.